This podcast critically examines the claim that AI can eliminate unemployment, arguing that such a promise is a dangerous oversimplification. It concludes that 100% elimination is a mirage because work is deeply intertwined with human identity, political power, and economic structures that AI alone cannot dismantle. While new jobs may emerge, the core challenge is not technological but societal. The distribution of AI-generated wealth and the redefinition of human worth in a world where labor is no longer central. As we stand on this precipice, the real question becomes less about if machines can do the work, and more about who we choose to become when they do.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We tackle the big questions here. And today, it's a really big one. Can AI eliminate unemployment, like once and for all? It sounds amazing, doesn't it? This sort of glittering, workless utopia. But, well, underneath that shine, it definitely stirs up some deep anxieties, about our value, our place.
Yeah.
So today, we're going to really explore these layers.
Absolutely. And our mission here, drawing from sources like AI, work, and the human predicament, it isn't just about the tech, the nuts and bolts of AI. It's really about facing that fundamental riddle.
Mm-hmm.
What does it actually mean to be human when intelligence isn't just ours anymore?
Okay, right. Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
I mean, this dream of being free from toil, it's ancient, isn't it? You've got Hephaestus' golden robots in Greek myths. Marx thinking about less drudgery, freeing us up to just be. And AI, well, it really feels like the closest we've ever gotten to making that workless utopia real.
But here's the thing, the paradox, right? Every time some new machine promises liberation, it also almost always pushes someone out. Think about the loom and the weavers, or spreadsheets and bookkeepers. History shows us it's not simple erasure. It's more like a constant reshaping, dislocation, and eventually rebirth. But it's messy.
So that target, that 100% unemployment eradication, it sounds, almost too clean, too perfect. Why should that absolute number, that promise, make us a bit suspicious? What do you think?
Well, I think it's because work for us humans is just so much more than how we survive, isn't it? It's a vessel for meaning. It gives structure to our identity. Even if AI could provide everything we needed physically, people would just invent work again, out of pride maybe, or boredom. We'd end up, funny enough, competing for new kinds of jobs, like who's the best taste curator, or who tells the most captivating stories, things AI might mimic but maybe never truly feel.
But the displacement, let's be real, it's happening right now. It feels very real for a lot of people. We're seeing lawyers watch AI draft contracts, teachers using adaptive software that sort of takes over parts of their job, customer service agents being replaced by chatbots. How do we square that immediate pain with the sort of historical long view you mentioned?
Yeah, and that connects right back to what economists call creative destruction. That churning process where new stuff pushes out the old. But the key thing is the destruction part. It's not shared equally at all. Look at the Industrial Revolution. Some people got incredibly rich, others literally starved. So AI brings storms, definite storms in the near term, not, instant fixes for everyone. There's often a real gap between the pain now and any potential future gain.
And this next bit is, wow, it's really something. This idea we've clung to human irreplaceability, our special spark, creativity, empathy. But AI is really pushing those boundaries now, isn't it? It can paint, write poems, compose, even seem to counsel people. So where does that leave us?
And yet, there's this deep paradox in human work. While AI can do the task, often brilliantly, the output, it kind of lacks what I'd call a shadow of presence. There's this hard to define invisible human residue that we just seem to value. Think about why you might choose a hand-thrown pot over a perfect factory one. It's not efficiency, it's the human touch, the imperfection.
That's so true. That slightly wobbly handmade mug, it tells a story, doesn't it? But if the future of work is, like you say, in things humans choose to get from other humans, doesn't that risk creating a divide, where only some can afford that human touch while others are left scrambling?
That's a huge concern, absolutely. And it brings us to, another critical angle here. We have to look at the shadows of power in all this, because unemployment isn't just a technical issue, is it? It's fundamentally political.
Exactly. Who gets to decide how AI is rolled out? Who actually pockets the savings from all this automation? These aren't just about efficiency. They're really questions about fairness, about equity.
And without very deliberate, conscious choices, history basically screams at us that the benefits just tend to, pull at the top. In the hands of a few, we've seen it over and over. The factory owner profits, the worker struggles to adapt. AI could, in theory, solve the problem of material need for everyone, but we could still end up with scarcity. Only this time, It would be manufactured scarcity, created by power structures, not by nature.
So let's circle back. Our core question, can AI actually end unemployment? And based on our sources and this whole discussion, the answer seems pretty clear. No, not completely, not forever.
Right. So the real question isn't just about the machines. It's not, can they provide enough? It's more about us. Can we as a society collectively reimagine what enough even means? And crucially, who deserves to have it? The future. It isn't predetermined by the AI itself. It's going to be shaped profoundly by the choices we make about it, for ourselves and for each other.
Wow. So that initial kind of simple question, it's really transformed, hasn't it? It's not just about jobs anymore. It's about, well, what will we do? What meaning will we make when these old structures of work start to crumble?
Exactly. The whole idea of work, if you look back, it's always been an invention. It's always been this shifting compromise, hasn't it? Between need and power and our deep search for meaning. AI is just going to sharpen that question, make it unavoidable. And it leaves us with this unsettling, maybe, but also kind of empowering thought. The future really is ours to choose.
Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving in, aren't we? We're plunging into a question that feels, I don't know, both ancient and incredibly now.
Right. It's got this long history, but it feels more urgent than ever.
Exactly. It's this riddle. It's tickled human imaginations for centuries, but let's be honest, it also kind of gnaws at our anxieties today.
Definitely. That underlying worry.
Yeah. What if the machines, AI, what if they aren't here just to save us from work? What if it's more like a test?
A test, how so?
Like a profound test of what it actually means to be human, especially now in an age where intelligence isn't just ours anymore.
Okay. When intelligence itself is becoming artificial or augmented.
Precisely. It's a pretty provocative thought, isn't it? So this deep dive, we're going to unravel whether artificial intelligence can genuinely eliminate unemployment, like make it disappear, or if it's just holding up a really stark mirror.
A mirror to our own ideas about work and labor and what gives us purpose.
Exactly. Our deepest assumptions about labor, our identity, all of it. So our mission today really is to take a close, meticulous look, really dig into some compelling sources that challenge the easy answers, the headlines we see all the time about AI and the future of work.
Going beyond the hype.
Totally. We want to unpack those historical dreams, the idea of a workless utopia, but also confront the current realities, the displacement that's actually happening.
Which is often messy and unequal.
Very. And grapple with the huge societal questions AI is forcing all of us to confront. Our goal really is to equip you, our listener, with a nuanced, well-informed understanding. We want to offer valuable insights, make them easy to grasp, easy to follow along with.
Give you the tools to navigate this complex landscape.
Exactly. Help you see the hidden dynamics and ultimately think about what kind of future we're actually building. Not just for us, but, for everyone. It's a big one. And to guide us on this exploration, we're drawing insights from two really rich pieces. They were originally published in Vietnamese, but the perspectives they offer feel incredibly universal and urgent.
Crosses cultural boundaries, this topic.
Absolutely. One translates roughly to AI and the shadow of unemployment, an uncertain future. The other is something like AI and the future of work, humanity's test.
Interesting titles. They already hint at that tension, don't they? The uncertainty versus the challenge.
They really do. And they offer this fantastic, multifaceted perspective on this critical subject. Honestly, they've got some truly eye-opening insights we're really keen to share with you today. Okay, so let's start there then. Let's unpack this age-old human desire first, because it's so deeply embedded, isn't it, in our collective consciousness.
Yeah, this yearning to be free from drudgery, for the daily grind.
Exactly. For millennia, people have dreamed of a world without it. A life unburdened. And this isn't some new fantasy cooked up in Silicon Valley, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It goes way, way back.
All the way back. You can trace it to, ancient Greek myths. Think about Hephaestus, the god of smiths, artisans.
Right, the divine craftsman.
He wasn't just hammering away alone. The stories say he crafted these golden automatons. Basically early robots.
To do his bidding, yeah. To do the labor for him.
Imagine that. The idea of artificial servants liberating us from physical work conceived thousands of years ago. It's wild.
It shows how fundamental that desire is.
And then you fast forward through the centuries and you see this dream just keep resurfacing again and again.
In different forms, but the core idea is the same.
Yeah. Think about the Enlightenment. Or even later, the industrial age. You had radical thinkers like Karl Marx, and this surprises some people.
Right, because he's often associated with the critique of industrial capitalism.
Exactly, but he didn't necessarily see machines as inherently evil. He actually envisioned the machine age as potentially, well, reducing drudgery.
Yeah.
Maybe even leading to an era where, what was the famous quote?
Something about hunting in the morning, fishing in the afternoon.
Yes, and critiquing after dinner.
Without ever being enslaved by necessity. That's the key part. Freedom from necessity.
Right, so this dream of a workless utopia, this sort of existential liberation where our time is finally our own, it's genuinely haunted every single industrial revolution we've ever had.
It's a constant thread in our history. A deep yearning for freedom from just surviving.
A profound part of our collective human story. And now, right now, shimmering on the horizon, we have artificial intelligence. And it looks like the closest we've ever actually come to realizing this ancient, enduring dream.
It feels different this time, maybe. More powerful.
It feels incredibly powerful. We're talking about systems that can reason, plan, learn, perform incredibly complex intellectual tasks.
Tasks that used to be solely human territory. The domain of skilled professionals.
Totally. We're seeing AI write software code, diagnose diseases with remarkable accuracy, translate languages almost instantly, manage huge, complex logistical networks.
The list keeps growing, doesn't it?
It really does. And the very existence of AI like this suggests a future where maybe, just maybe, no one needs to grind themselves into exhaustion simply to survive.
It whispers that promise of abundance.
Yeah, incredible efficiency, unprecedented abundance, and this profound freedom that could totally reshape human existence. But, and here's the twist, right? Here's the unsettling paradox.
Always a but. Precisely. And this is where it gets really fascinating and frankly a bit unsettling, like you said.
Yeah.
While AI dangles this gleaming promise of liberation, of an end to toil, history offers a really stark, sometimes quite brutal paradox.
Okay, what's the paradox?
Every single time. Every time a new machine, a new technology, a new way of producing things has promised to free us from labor. It has simultaneously, and often quite painfully, chained other people more tightly.
Chained them. Just left them behind.
Both, really. Chain them to new forms of struggle, new kinds of repetitive or dangerous work, or displace them entirely from their livelihoods, leaving them with nothing.
Ah, okay, so it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly. And this isn't something new that just arrived with computers or AI. It's a deeply ingrained pattern. It's woven into the very fabric of technological progress. It's this constant cycle of creation and destruction that's defined economic development for centuries. You can see this pattern playing out over and over again. Think about the Industrial Revolution and the automated loom.
Right, replacing hand weavers.
Absolutely. Incredible efficiency in making textiles, no doubt.
Yeah.
But it irrevocably displaced countless skilled weavers. It basically destroyed an entire craft that had supported communities for generations.
And people fought back, right? The Luddites?
Famously, yes. They saw the machines as literally stealing their future, their means of survival. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was existential. Or think about the assembly line, pioneered by Ford.
Revolutionized manufacturing, made cars affordable.
True. But it also drastically changed the nature of work. It largely made obsolete the traditional craftsmen who built things holistically, piece by piece. Work became fragmented, repetitive, often soul-crushing for many.
Yeah, you hear those stories.
And then, more recently, think about something seemingly simple like the spreadsheet.
Like Excel.
Exactly. Its widespread adoption dramatically altered the role of bookkeepers, accountants. It automated tasks that were once manual, incredibly tedious, time-consuming. Many had to adapt or risk being left behind.
So these weren't just simple job losses.
Not at all. They were dramatic reshapes, painful dislocations, and then eventually, often slowly and unevenly, came the rebirth of entirely new industries, new job categories. It's this continuous, often brutal cycle of transformation.
A kind of economic evolution, but with real human costs.
Exactly. Evolutionary pressure on the job market that rarely stops to consider the human cost for those caught in the transition. So, if we connect this history to the bigger picture, what we see is that the story of technology isn't simple. It's not just about total job destruction, nor is it purely about universal progress where everyone wins.
It's much messier than that.
Much messier. It's a story of profound, often turbulent, and deeply unequal transformation. Which brings us back to AI and raises a really important question for us and for you, our listener.
Okay.
When we ask, can AI eradicate unemployment, are we actually holding both things in tension? Are we acknowledging both that intoxicating possibility of freedom and the very real, historically inevitable prospect of widespread displacement?
As history demands, we should.
As history demands, yes. Are we seeing both the dream of the workless utopia and the potential nightmare of millions left without purpose or income walking side by side?
Because that seems to be the complex reality.
That is the complex reality history presents us with. And AI is simply the latest, arguably the most powerful iteration of this ancient dilemma.
Okay, so given that history, that constant tension,
Yeah.
this dance between liberation and displacement, can AI finally do it? Can it end unemployment once and for all, like solve it 100% for itself?
100%. It does sound absolute, doesn't it? Almost suspicious.
Right. Life rarely gives us those kinds of clean, perfect numbers, especially with something as fundamentally human, as messy, as complex as our relationship with work and society.
It feels like a very bold, maybe even unrealistic claim.
Exactly. It feels like a glittering promise, but as one of our sources points out, the very idea of absolute eradication, 100%, it should make us pause. We need to dig into why that might be a false promise.
Look beneath the surface of the claim.
And the reason we should pause, I think, goes much deeper than just economics or statistics. It touches on what it means to be human. Because work, in its broadest sense, it isn't just about survival, is it? It's not just a paycheck.
No, it's tied up with so much more. Our sense of purpose, our dignity.
Our identity, our place in the world. It's a vessel for meaning, a fundamental structure for who we are.
Yeah, how we introduce ourselves often starts with, what do you do?
Exactly. So just imagine, even if AI somehow managed to provide for every single physical need, food, shelter, health, transport, entertainment, everything.
A world of complete material abundance provided by machines.
Right. Would humans just stop?
Yeah.
Would we invent work anew? I think we would.
Why, though, if everything's provided?
Out of pride, maybe, out of sheer boredom, out of that ancient, deep-seated need to matter, to contribute something, to find significance, to challenge ourselves, to create things.
That internal drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The very idea of a 100% absolute permanent elimination of work seems to overlook this fundamental, almost spiritual aspect of human nature, our inherent need for engagement, for purpose.
You've really hit on a crucial point there about the human condition. And it raises this important question about how we even define work and unemployment.
Because those definitions aren't set in stone.
Not at all. They aren't natural laws like gravity. They are human constructs, social inventions that have evolved over time. Unemployment isn't just some technical glitch in the market that AI can simply debug and fix.
It's more complex.
Far more complex. It's often a structural feature of economies, sometimes a direct result of how we've designed our society. And let's be honest, at times, it can even be used as a political tool, maybe to keep wages down or manage labor.
That's part of thought.
Well, it's part of the complexity. And the very concept of employment itself is fluid. It constantly shifts whenever technology redraws the boundaries of what society considers necessary or valuable labor. Just think about it for a second to make it less abstract. How do we define work right now?
Usually getting paid for doing something?
Right, typically paid labor. But think about a stay-at-home parent. They perform immense labor, right? Childcare, household management, scheduling, emotional support.
Absolutely essential work.
Essential, yes. But they aren't technically employed in the standard economic sense. They don't show up in GDP figures in the same way a paid worker does. Or think about volunteers for charities or community groups.
They contribute huge value.
Enormous value. But again, not counted among the employed. This just highlights how our definitions are human inventions, not absolute truths handed down from nature. If our society decided to value care work or community service as highly, economically, as corporate labor,
Our whole picture of employment and unemployment would change.
dramatically, our economic structure, our societal priorities, everything would look different. So now let's push that thought experiment further. Imagine that world where AI truly handles every practical task. Growing all our food with incredible efficiency, designing stunning sustainable buildings, diagnosing illnesses instantly, even composing symphonies that rival the greats.
Okay, AI does everything productive in the traditional sense.
Right. What would humans actually do all day? Would we just dissolve into some kind of idle bliss, a permanent vacation?
It sounds nice for a week, maybe.
Exactly. Or would we, and here's the paradox again, would we actively compete for totally new forms of labor?
Compete for what kind of work?
Maybe curating taste, helping people navigate abundance, or telling deeply personal stories in ways an AI can't. Designing bespoke, hyper-personalized experiences, engaging in profoundly human creative acts that AI can mimic, maybe, but can't truly replicate in a way that resonates with us. Or maybe just things we prefer to get from another human.
Like a therapist or a coach or an artist.
Precisely. That human need for engagement, purpose, recognition. It's incredibly strong. It wouldn't disappear. It would just redirect itself into new channels. So to believe that AI will end unemployment 100%, it feels like fundamentally misreading history, ignoring centuries of human experience.
We've seen this movie before, just with different technology.
Exactly. Every previous technological revolution tells a similar story. Think about the shift from farming to factories. Millions of agricultural workers were displaced.
But new factory jobs appeared.
Right. Then, as manufacturing automated, we saw a massive shift, again, towards the service economy. These huge revolutions never eradicated unemployment entirely.
It just changed shape.
It shifted, it reappeared, it took on new forms. It was a constant reshuffling, a redefinition of who was productive and who wasn't. But the underlying forces, human restlessness, the pain of dislocation, systemic inequalities, they were always there, just manifesting differently.
So the idea that AI is somehow the final chapter, the ultimate solution that breaks this pattern.
It seems incredibly optimistic, maybe even naive, given the historical record. So, the truth, when you look at it this way, is quite stark. Unemployment, as a concept tied to our current economic and social structures, it simply cannot be annihilated. Why? Because the very concept of employment isn't a fixed target.
It's a moving target.
It's a moving, evolving definition, constantly being shaped by our changing needs, our shifting societal values, and of course by technological advancements like AI.
So AI might make current jobs obsolete.
Absolutely. It may very well close the chapter on many forms of work as we know them today. But humans, in our infinite adaptability, our creativity, our persistent, stubborn need for meaning, we will always write another chapter.
We'll find new things to do, new ways to contribute.
We'll redefine what it means to contribute, what it means to find purpose, and what it means to be employed within that ever-shifting landscape of human endeavor. It's a continuous process, not an endpoint.
Okay, so even if that idea of total liberation, 100% freedom from work for everyone, is ultimately a mirage, a false promise, the immediate waves of displacement are incredibly real.
They're not hypothetical, they're happening now.
They're happening right now in communities and industries all over the world. And sometimes it feels quiet, doesn't it? Almost insidious, like a slow tide.
You barely notice it at first.
Yeah, until suddenly you look down and realize the beach you were standing on had just been pulled out from under your feet. This isn't some distant future sci-fi scenario.
It's the present reality for many people, impacting lives, livelihoods today.
Just think about some examples. Think about a lawyer, right? Someone who spent years honing their skills, countless hours researching legal precedents, meticulously drafting complex contracts.
Highly skilled, highly paid work.
Exactly. Now, they watch AI draft those same contracts, maybe even better in some ways, in seconds, automating tasks that used to take hours, days, even weeks of intense intellectual effort.
That's got to be unnerving.
Or consider a teacher. Their traditional lessons, the core of their profession for generations, now being supplemented, or in some cases even potentially supplanted, by incredibly adaptive AI tutoring software.
Software that can personalize learning for each student 24/7.
In ways a single human teacher, no matter how dedicated, just can't replicate at scale. And then there's the really common one, the customer service agent.
Millions of jobs globally.
Millions, now increasingly replaced by sophisticated chatbots that never sleep, never get frustrated, never falter in their programmed responses, always available.
And much cheaper, presumably.
Much cheaper. These aren't just abstract case studies. They are happening now. They're transforming the landscape of intellectual labor, white-collar work, raising profound questions for huge parts of the population, and the impact. It's far from theoretical, isn't it? Layoffs aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet.
They're headlines, real stories affecting real people.
They're making headlines with increasing regularity. It's becoming a tangible, often devastating reality for countless individuals, families, whole communities. And for someone who loses their livelihood, someone standing on that edge, bills piling up, family to feed.
The abstract future doesn't matter much.
It genuinely doesn't matter if economists say, oh, new jobs will emerge someday in some vague, distant future. The abyss, that chasm between now and that hypothetical then, it yawns incredibly wide.
And people fall into it.
Tragically, many will fall into it. facing not just financial ruin, but profound emotional distress, a loss of purpose, a sense of being left behind, deemed obsolete. We just have to acknowledge the real, often cruel, human cost of this transition.
A cost that often falls hardest on those least equipped to handle it.
Exactly.
And this is precisely where the stark economic reality just cuts right through any utopian fantasy we might want to hold on to. Economic history always talks about creative destruction, right? That term coined by Joseph Schumpeter.
Where old industries die off and new ones are born.
Exactly. Old jobs are destroyed, making way for new ones. But, and this is the crucial part we have to be brutally honest about, that destruction is never evenly born.
It's not fair.
It's highly unequal, often deeply unjust. Think back again to the Industrial Revolution. It swept across societies. Some individuals thrived, didn't they? Factory owners, industrialists. They accumulated immense wealth and power.
Built empires.
While others starved in overcrowded city slums, their traditional livelihoods as artisans or farmers completely obliterated. Or think about globalization in the late 20th century.
Cheaper goods for consumers in some places.
Right. Unprecedented convenience for some. But entire domestic industries in other regions, textiles, steel, manufacturing hubs, were decimated, leaving communities hollowed out, without work, without hope for generations sometimes.
And AI won't be different.
AI, as one of our sources starkly puts it, will be no different. The burden of this wave of creative destruction will fall disproportionately, almost certainly, deepening the divides that already exist. We can look at the last 40 years or so, the era of globalization and early automation, as a really powerful recent example.
Right.
Productivity shot up in many economies, right? Including here.
Yeah, we produced more stuff more efficiently.
Definitely. Yet despite that surge in output, despite all the new wealth being created, wages for most workers, what happened to them?
They stagnated, mostly, or barely increased.
Largely stagnated. The benefits, the incredible wealth generated by that productivity boom, accrued disproportionately. It flowed upwards.
To capital owners, shareholders, executives.
Exactly. Not broadly shared. And think about the individual worker. The truck driver who lost his job to sophisticated logistics software or early autonomous vehicle trials. Did he automatically retrain and become a data scientist overnight?
Unlikely. Very unlikely.
The seamstress whose skilled work was taken over by automated garment robots. Did she seamlessly transition into a high-tech biotech role? The promise of new jobs often doesn't match the skills, the location, or the educational background of those who were displaced.
Creating this painful mismatch.
A huge, painful mismatch in the labor market. And AI, with its unprecedented power, especially in cognitive tasks, it threatens to accelerate this divergence, to make the gap even wider, the transition even harder.
How so?
Well, think about it. When a large company can replace, say, 1,000 human customer service reps with a single, highly efficient AI system, what happens to the massive cost savings?
They don't usually hand it out as bonuses to remaining staff.
Not typically, no. The savings tend to flow upward. They boost profits, which increases the company's stock price, benefiting investors and top executives.
Well, on the ground.
Unemployment lines get longer for those 1,000 people who lost their jobs. Economists have a name for this, you know. Skill-biased technological change.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means technology increasingly rewards those who have skills that complement the new tech. The engineers building the AI, the data scientists training it, the prompt engineers who know how to talk to it effectively, the specialists managing these complex systems.
They do well.
Their skills become more valuable. But the same technology simultaneously punishes, or at least leaves behind, those whose skills are substituted by the technology, those without those specialized complementary skills.
Creating a bigger gap between the highly skilled and everyone else.
Exactly. It carves out this chasm in the labor market, accelerating the divide. It makes you think. The ghost of Marx, as one of our sources poetically puts it, really does hover here, whispering that timeless warning across the centuries.
What warning is that?
That the forces of production, our technology, our ability to create goods and services, they advance with incredible speed, like a race car. But the relations of production, our societal structures for sharing wealth, organizing labor, providing opportunity, ensuring fairness, they often lag far behind, like an old, crumbling road network.
So the fast car causes problems on the old roads.
Precisely. You have this incredibly powerful engine AI capable of amazing things. But if the rules of the road, the traffic system, who gets to drive, who benefits from the journey, if that system is old, unfair, and only accessible to a few, you're heading for massive pileups. Huge problems.
So the key question isn't just, can AI do the work?
No. The crucial question is not only whether AI can technically end unemployment by creating theoretical abundance, it's whether we as a society will allow its immense fruits to be shared widely enough for such an ending to happen without leaving millions in despair.
Will we update the road network?
Exactly. Because in the near term, based on current trends and historical patterns, what AI seems to be bringing are not simple solutions, but potentially profound and disruptive storms. Storms of displacement, economic hardship, and increasing inequality. The immediate reality is one of upheaval, and the burden is definitely not being shared equally.
Wow, that's a really stark picture of the immediate future. It does make me wonder, though, and I think a lot of people wonder this, is there anything left? Is there some bastion, some fortress of the human spirit or human capability that AI just cannot breach?
That uniquely human spark.
Yeah. Is there some kind of work that's so uniquely human, so irreducibly alive, so deeply connected to our essence that it will just always remain ours, safe from the algorithmic tide?
It's a comforting thought, isn't it? A hope many people cling to.
Absolutely. It's the hope that says, okay, AI can do that, but it can never do this.
Yeah.
Yet even that comfort, that hope, it's being seriously challenged every single day now, isn't it?
And lines keep blurring.
They really do. We used to think creativity was safe. That was supposed to be our thing. Human imagination, intuition, lived experience.
The realm of the artist, the writer, the musician.
Right. But now, AI paints incredibly intricate artwork, sometimes winning competitions. It writes poetry that can be surprisingly compelling, even moving. It composes music, generates entire symphonies that evoke genuine emotion in listeners.
So creativity, maybe not so safe.
Maybe not. Then we thought empathy was safe. That deep connection, shared vulnerability, understanding. Surely only humans can do that.
The human touch in caring professions.
Yeah. But AI now converses, it consoles, it even counsels people with a level of sophistication that can be startling. It mimics emotional intelligence incredibly well sometimes.
Which raises questions about what empathy really is.
It does. And then we absolutely thought high-level strategy, like the pinnacle of human intellect and foresight, that had to be safe. Grandmaster chess players, military generals.
Complex decision-making under uncertainty.
Exactly. But AI plays Go at a superhuman level. It masters chess effortlessly. It even engages in complex military war games beyond our full human comprehension, often outperforming the best human minds on the planet.
Strategy falls too.
It seems like it. So with all these perceived bastions falling one after another, what does this actually mean for the whole concept of human uniqueness, human irreplaceability in the workplace? What is left that is truly uniquely ours, our ineffable contribution?
That's precisely the core of humanity's test, as one of our sources calls it.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask, what is the nature of true human value beyond just task completion?
Okay.
Because while AI can indeed mimic these capabilities, it can paint, compose, converse, strategize with astonishing proficiency using things like generative adversarial networks, GANs for art, or large language models, LLMs for text.
The results can be impressive.
Undeniably, but is there often something ineffable, missing, something invisible but profoundly felt?
Like what?
Well, think about reading a poem written purely by an AI. Even if it's technically perfect, grammatically flawless, follows all the rules. Does it not perhaps lack a certain shadow of presence, a depth that comes from lived experience, from suffering, joy, mortality, that raw, unvarnished vulnerability that maybe only a human author, with their unique biography, their finite life, can truly imbue?
That's interesting. A lack of lived experience behind the words.
Or when you receive comfort or counsel from a chatbot? No matter how sophisticated, how well-programmed its empathetic responses are, is there not, somewhere deep down, a faint sense of emptiness in the words? A missing element of genuine shared humanity? The understanding that comes from knowing you're interacting with another conscious being who truly gets it on some level.
Yeah, you know it's an algorithm, not a person.
Exactly. This something is incredibly hard to pin down, to quantify. It's not an algorithm itself, but its absence is often profoundly felt. It's what makes real human connection so vital, so irreplaceable in many contexts. And this leads us to what our sources call the paradox of human work. The value isn't always in its perfection or efficiency.
Which is usually what we aim for with machines.
Right. But human work often carries this residue of being, of mortality, of the very imperfections that define us and make us real. Think about why we might treasure a hand-thrown ceramic pot.
Even if it's a bit wonky or uneven.
Exactly. Even though the factory-produced version is geometrically smoother, more consistent, maybe perfect by objective standards, we value the trace of the human hand, or why we cherish a handwritten note from a loved one.
Even though a printed font is clearer, more legible.
Precisely. Perhaps the true, enduring future of human work isn't purely in finding tasks that AI absolutely cannot do, because that list might keep shrinking.
As AI gets better and better.
Right. But rather, maybe it's in the tasks that humans choose to receive from other humans, precisely because of that ineffable quality, that unique human touch, that shared experience, that inherent imperfection, that authenticity.
So it becomes about preference, not just capability.
Exactly. It's about connection, authenticity, the value we place on the human footprint itself. Think about bespoke tailoring versus fast fashion, or artisanal bread versus factory loaves, or personalized coaching versus a generic online course, or even just a deep conversation with a trusted friend versus venting to a chatbot.
In those cases, the human element isn't a flaw, it's the point.
It's the core value, not an imperfection to be engineered out, but the very thing being sought. Now, having said that, there is the optimist's argument, and it's a compelling one. We have to acknowledge it because history backs it up to some extent.
The argument that new jobs always appear.
Yes. Every previous major technological revolution, without fail, created entirely new jobs, whole new industries that were utterly unforeseeable beforehand. Think about electricity.
Okay, what did that replace and create?
Well, it decimated the whale oil industry, the candle-making trade. But in turn, it gave birth to radio broadcasting, cinema, the entire home appliance industry, eventually computing. Things no one could have dreamed of.
Right, things built on electricity.
Or the internet. It hammered traditional businesses like travel agents, physical media stores, but it generated massive new ecosystems. E-commerce, app development, digital marketing, social media management, cloud computing.
Whole new worlds of work.
Exactly. So it's perfectly reasonable, based on history, to assume that new jobs will emerge with AI. We'll definitely need AI ethicists, right, to guide its development responsibly.
Makes sense.
We'll need data curators to manage the vast data sets AI feeds on. Prompt engineers to master the art of communicating with AI effectively. Synthetic environment designers to build the virtual worlds AI might operate in. And countless other roles we literally can't even conceive of yet.
Entirely new industries might bloom.
Absolutely. Centered around managing, interpreting, extending, and creatively applying AI's capabilities. However, and this is where the caution comes back in, and it's critical, there are very significant reasons to believe this time might be different, or at least the transition much harder. Reasons that temper that optimism.
Okay, why might AI be different from electricity or the internet?
The key difference lies in what is being automated. Previous technologies predominantly automated physical labor, repetitive, manual tasks. Think operating a loom, lifting heavy objects, assembling parts.
Muscle work, essentially.
Largely, yes. AI, by stark contrast, targets cognitive labor, thinking work, the very essence of most modern white-collar jobs. Analysis, decision-making, pattern recognition, creativity, communication, planning.
The stuff knowledge workers do.
Exactly. And the sheer scale and speed of this cognitive automation might genuinely outpace society's ability to adapt this time. Think about the timescale. A factory worker displaced by automation in, say, 1900 might have had, realistically, a generation or so for society to adjust, for new industries to slowly emerge, for retraining to happen, often into less cognitively demanding roles initially.
A slower transition.
Relatively slower.
Right.
Now consider a knowledge worker, a lawyer, a programmer, a graphic designer, an accountant displaced by advanced AI in 2025. The new industries emerging from AI might themselves be heavily automated from the start or require such highly specialized, rapidly evolving skills.
That retraining becomes incredibly difficult.
Incredibly difficult, expensive, and maybe even futile if the required skills become obsolete again before the retraining is even finished. The sheer acceleration of change, the constant shifting of the goalpost for required skills, that's a critical differentiating factor. It demands a whole new level of societal responsiveness and support for lifelong learning and transition. So, summing that up, unemployment probably won't ever be total in the absolute 100% sense. Why? Because that fundamental human hunger for connection, for genuine human touch, for seeing the human fingerprint, for imperfection, for authentic presence, that can't be fully erased by code.
In fact, those things might become more valuable in an automated world.
Exactly. Scarcity increases value. The human element could become a premium. But we must be incredibly clear-eyed about the profound challenges this transition presents for millions of people.
The transition itself is the painful part.
Immensely painful. The emotional, social, and economic costs for those caught in the waves of displacement will be huge if we don't proactively prepare, both as individuals and, crucially, as a society. The question isn't if new jobs will emerge eventually, it's whether enough people can realistically transition to them quickly enough and at what human cost along the way.
That distinction you made between AI's capabilities and our human desire for connection, that feels really important. But here's where things get, well, maybe even more complicated and frankly, a bit darker.
Okay.
The whole problem of unemployment, especially when we think about an AI-driven future, it's not just a technical problem, is it? It's not just about perfecting the algorithms or optimizing the automation.
You're saying it's political.
Fundamentally and profoundly political. Because AI doesn't just descend from the heavens like some benevolent force, like rain falling equally on all fields, benefiting everyone the same.
No, it's created by people, by organizations.
Exactly. It is built, it is owned, and it is controlled by specific entities. By powerful corporations seeking profit and market share, by governments with their own strategic interests, by existing elites who already hold significant power.
So who holds the reins matters. A lot.
It's absolutely central to understanding AI's real-world impact beyond the technical potential, the concentration of power, and the decisions made by those who wield it. That's the crucial variable. So the most important question maybe isn't just, can AI eliminate unemployment in some abstract theoretical way?
But rather,
The real question is much more pointed. It hits right at the core of our societal values, our structures. It's who decides how this incredibly powerful technology is actually used. Who gets to set the rules? Who ultimately reaps the massive savings, the efficiencies, the profits generated from all this automation?
and crucially,
And critically, perhaps most importantly, who bears the losses? Who pays the price of displacement? Who carries the human cost when jobs disappear?
these aren't tech questions.
Not at all. These are questions of power, of justice, of distribution, of societal design. Questions that we, as a collective society, absolutely must confront head on. We can't just let the technology decide for us.
And history, as it so often does, warns us repeatedly, emphatically on this point.
Right.
Without deliberate design, without conscious, robust societal intervention and regulation, the benefits of powerful new technologies almost inevitably concentrate. They pool in the hands of the few.
We've seen that pattern before.
Over and over. Think back to the archetypal factory owner during the Industrial Revolution. They grew incredibly rich, incredibly powerful, building vast industrial empires.
While the workers?
While the workers often faced brutal conditions, long hours, low pay, precarious lives in the factories and mines, their hands grew callous, their lives were often short. Or, think more recently, the platform mogul, the founder of the massive digital platform.
Soaring to unprecedented levels of wealth, building digital empires.
Exactly. While the gig economy driver, the delivery person, the content moderator working for that platform often struggles to make ends meet, lacking basic job security, benefits, living paycheck to paycheck.
Huge disparity.
Immense. So unless society actively intervenes through strong public policy, through mechanisms for redistribution like genuinely progressive taxation on wealth and corporate profits, or by forging entirely new social contracts fit for the 21st century,
Then AI might just make things worse.
it's a very real possibility.
Okay.
AI's incredible efficiencies might counterintuitively end up deepening inequality rather than erasing unemployment or ushering in universal prosperity. This is such a critical point. The technology itself might be neutral, capable of many things.
But its application, how it's deployed, who controls it, that's not neutral at all.
Not neutral in the slightest. It reflects existing power structures and can amplify them. And this leads us down a path towards a truly haunting possibility, a scenario that feels almost dystopian but isn't impossible.
Okay, what is it?
AI could, in a purely technical sense, solve the material problem of labor for humanity. It could generate an unprecedented level of abundance across the board. Imagine a world where automated systems produce all the goods we need, deliver all the services, process all the information with minimal human input. A genuine surplus of everything.
Sounds like the utopia we talked about earlier.
It could be, and yet, despite this potential for universal provision, such a world could still leave millions, maybe even billions, technically unemployed, struggling, disenfranchised, cut off from that abundance.
How? If there's abundance, why would people struggle?
Simply because the immense wealth generated by the AI is hoarded. because access to the benefits of that abundance is restricted by those who own the AI systems, the platforms, the data.
So scarcity isn't real, it's manufactured.
Exactly. In such a scenario, scarcity wouldn't be a natural limit imposed by nature or a lack of resources. It would be manufactured by power dynamics, by wealth that is intentionally concentrated and withheld, creating artificial barriers that prevent many from living a life of dignity, even amidst potential plenty.
Right.
We can even look at some powerful political precedents that illustrate this kind of manufactured scarcity, where the capacity exists, but the distribution fails.
Yeah.
Think about the Great Depression in the 1930s.
Okay. Mass unemployment then.
It wasn't a technical necessity, was it? It wasn't because America suddenly couldn't produce enough food or build enough houses or make enough goods.
No, the factories and farms were still there.
Exactly. In fact, famously, crops rotted in fields because farmers couldn't sell them. Factories stood idle because people couldn't afford to buy things. Houses remained empty, while millions starved, suffered, lost everything. It was, fundamentally, a political and systemic failure of distribution. A breakdown of the social contract, despite the physical capacity for abundance.
The system failed the people.
Profoundly. Likewise, fast forward to an AI-driven future. AI could potentially produce an abundance unimaginable just a generation ago, while vast unemployment and hardship still fester. And the reason wouldn't be a lack of machine capacity, it would be human decisions. Decisions about who deserves access to that abundance, who is deemed worthy of its benefits based on outdated notions of employment, and who is considered surplus to requirements left behind. So this raises an incredibly important and frankly chilling question for all of us, for our political leaders. If AI does displace millions of workers on a scale we've never seen before, what will the political response actually be?
What are the options?
Well, will leaders rise to the moment? Will they implement forward-thinking policies designed for this new era? Things like a robust universal basic income, UBI, to provide a safety net for everyone. Progressive wealth taxes to ensure the enormous gains from AI are shared more broadly. Mandates for significantly shorter work weeks to distribute the remaining human labor. Comprehensive guaranteed employment schemes focused on public good care work, environmental restoration, community building.
Those sound like proactive solutions.
They are potential solutions being discussed.
Yeah.
Or will they take a different path? Will they perhaps deliberately, perhaps through inaction, allow mass unemployment to fester? Allow it to become this convenient, ever-present reservoir of desperation?
Why would they do that?
Because a desperate workforce weakens labor's bargaining power. It drives down wages for those who are still working. It potentially deepens social stratification and reinforces existing power structures.
That's the chilling part.
It is. The specter here is truly chilling. AI might not only fail to solve unemployment as we currently understand it, it could actively be used as a justification for deepening inequalities, for further concentrating wealth and power in the hands of those who own and control the algorithms, fundamentally reshaping the power dynamics of society in a profoundly unfair way.
So the future of work isn't just about technology.
It's fundamentally a political battleground. The choices we make now about governance, distribution, and power will determine whether AI leads to shared prosperity or deeper division.
That analysis of power, of manufactured scarcity, it really does cast a long shadow, doesn't it? And it feels like here we arrive at this critical threshold, a point where maybe our perspective needs to fundamentally shift.
Look at the problem differently.
Yeah. The question we started with, can AI solve unemployment completely? Maybe it's revealing itself as, I don't know, a trick of perspective. Maybe it's the wrong question, or at least too narrow a question.
Tethered too much to the past.
Exactly, too tethered to old ways of thinking. Maybe the real deeper question isn't just whether machines can provide enough for everyone. Maybe the real question is whether we as a society can collectively reimagine what enough even means for a life of dignity. And perhaps even more importantly, who genuinely deserves access to that enough, regardless of whether they have a traditional job or not.
Moving beyond linking worth solely to employment.
Yes, it forces us to confront our most fundamental values about human worth and contribution. And this has a really profound, deeper implication for all of us, I think. Perhaps the real riddle isn't whether AI can solve unemployment, as we currently define it, but whether unemployment is even the right lens at all for the future we seem to be moving into.
Questioning the category itself.
Right. What is employment, really, when you strip it down? It's basically a system largely invented during the industrial age, specifically designed to organize labor into predictable hours, fixed wages, legal contracts.
A structure for managing industrial production.
Exactly. It's a relatively recent historical construct, not some eternal truth. So, if AI comes along and profoundly destabilizes this entire structure, making many traditional jobs obsolete, maybe clinging rigidly to the word unemployment actually blinds us.
Blinds us to what?
Blinds us to the entirely new social and economic structures that are already emerging or that we need to consciously build. We might be desperately looking for a solution to a problem that's fundamentally changing its very nature right under our feet. We might just be asking the wrong question in a rapidly evolving landscape.
Precisely. And this raises that incredibly important question about our core societal values and the structures we built around them. What would it genuinely mean to live in a world where nobody needs to work in the traditional sense to survive, where basic necessities, food, shelter, healthcare, education are largely provided, perhaps through highly automated systems fueled by AI?
It's hard to even imagine fully.
It really is. What would that profound shift do to our human soul, to our collective psyche, to our individual identities, which are so often tied to our jobs?
It's a question we are not really prepared for.
We are profoundly ill-prepared to answer it without some deep, sustained reflection, and probably some bold societal experimentation. We've tethered so much of our self-worth, our social standing, our daily routine to the concept of having a job. And the social dimension here is absolutely critical to grasp. Being unemployed isn't just about lacking wages, lacking money. For many people, it's experienced as a deep, often scarring rupture in their personal and social identity.
It affects how you see yourself and how others see you.
Absolutely. Work, however flawed, however imperfect or repetitive it might be. It provides essential structure to our days. It offers a sense of contribution, however small, a feeling of purpose, a routine, a connection, a vital tether to society's rhythms and expectations.
A reason to get up in the morning.
For many, yes. So to be unemployed is often not just to lack money, but to face the profound stigma of feeling useless. The crushing silence of mornings with nowhere you need to be, no one waiting for your labor, no clearly defined role in the societal machinery.
We saw glimpses of this during the pandemic lockdowns, didn't we?
We really did. When millions were suddenly laid off or furloughed during COVID-19, we saw the impact wasn't just financial. Many people found themselves tragically adrift, not just economically, but existentially. We saw depression rates rise dramatically, addiction surged, social unrest simmered beneath the surface.
The loss of structure and purpose hit hard.
It hit very hard. It showed us that we simply do not yet know how to live well, how to thrive, how to define our worth collectively without the defining role that work has played in our lives for centuries. It's a potential identity crisis waiting to happen on a massive societal scale if we don't address it. So even if AI could theoretically handle all material necessity, if drones tended the fields, diagnostic algorithms ran the hospitals, predictive software managed our cities, creating abundance for all, society would very likely invent entirely new forms of labor, new avenues for contribution and meaning.
Why? If the need isn't material.
Because the need is also psychological and social. These new forms might be creative, symbolic, ritualistic, deeply interpersonal, focused on community building, environmental stewardship, all aimed at preserving meaning, status, and a sense of purpose beyond purely economic utility. The role of being employed isn't just about economics, it's profoundly a social and psychological identity that humans seem to crave, seem to need.
AI can't just dissolve that need.
For all its capabilities, it cannot simply dissolve this fundamental human need entirely. It might redefine how we fulfill it, maybe freeing us from drudgery to pursue higher needs, but it won't eliminate the need itself. And this really prompts us to think expansively, to think beyond our current paradigms. How do we redefine human worth and societal contribution in a world where traditional labor is significantly reduced or altered?
What could that look like?
Well, if governments, for instance, were to widely adopt something like a robust universal basic income, providing an economic floor below which no one could fall, then unemployment in the purely economic sense could vanish. Everyone would be materially supported, regardless of their job status.
Okay, that addresses the survival aspect.
It addresses the material problem, yes. But what about the meaning, the status, the identity? If communities alongside that UBI were to actively redefine status and value through other forms of contribution, through creativity, through essential care work, which is often undervalued now, through environmental action, through vibrant civic participation.
Activities that AI struggles with or that we prefer humans to do.
Exactly. Then perhaps the stigma of not having a traditional job might genuinely fade away. the concept of unemployment itself might become obsolete, replaced by a broader focus on contribution, engagement, or purpose.
But that's a big if.
It's a huge if. Because the critical caveat is, if societies stubbornly cling to the old metric, the idea that your value, your worth as a human being derives almost exclusively from paid labor in the formal economy, then unemployment, even with UBI, will remain. It will remain an ever-expanding social and psychological wound. A wound that AI on its own cannot heal because the wound isn't technological, it's social, cultural, and psychological. And that brings us back to the core point. The future, crucially, is not predetermined by the technology itself. AI doesn't dictate our future.
It just opens up possibilities.
It expands what is possible, for good and for ill. It offers us incredibly powerful new tools, new capabilities, but also profound new challenges. The actual decision, the path we take, rests with us.
Our choices matter.
Our politics matter. Our collective values matter. Our courage to imagine and then actually build another way of living together matters immensely. A way that genuinely prioritizes universal human dignity and widespread well-being above narrow definitions of efficiency or the concentration of wealth. That is the profound test AI presents us with, a test of our collective will, our foresight, and our moral compass. Hashtag outro.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what does this all mean? Where does it leave us? Can AI truly end unemployment?
The short answer seems to be no.
Yeah, the nuanced answer, drawing from the sources we looked at from that historical lens, it really seems to be no, not entirely, not forever, at least not in any simple utopian way we might wish for.
Not as long as unemployment is tangled up with so much else.
Exactly, not as long as it remains so deeply entangled with inequality, with our very identity, our sense of purpose, and with that intricate, often messy dance of politics and power.
We'll just magically erase the layoffs.
No, it won't erase the immediate painful tides of layoffs that are already hitting industries around the globe. But, and this is important, what AI will do, what it's already doing, is forcing us to confront a raw, maybe unsettling truth.
Which is?
That the nature of work, what we consider a job, has never been fixed. It's never been some immutable law of nature. It has always been a human invention, a dynamic compromise between our fundamental needs, the prevailing power structures of the time, and our innate, restless human search for meaning. AI is just the latest, most powerful force pushing us to reinvent it again.
And you see, the machines, the AI, they won't answer the fundamental questions for us. They can't. They will only sharpen them, make the choices starker, make the consequences of our choices more pronounced.
Hold up that mirror more clearly.
Exactly. AI has revealed, maybe more clearly than ever before, that the very category of employment itself is fragile. It's contingent on history and technology. And perhaps, as our sources suggest, it's destined for profound transformation, maybe even eventual obsolescence in its current form.
So we're at a crossroads.
We truly stand at a threshold, looking at two very different doors opening onto our collective future. Through one door lies the potential for abundance with justice, a future where machines handle the drudgery, working for the benefit of all, and humans are genuinely free to redefine purpose, to find new sources of meaning, to pursue flourishing lives beyond the confines of the traditional job.
That's the optimistic path.
It is, but through the other door lies abundance with exclusion. A future where machines enrich the few who own and control them, while potentially leaving millions discarded as unnecessary, their lives stripped of both material support and dignity, struggling to survive in the shadow of a technological plenty they cannot access. The machines merely widen the possibilities, they expand the potential outcomes. They do not choose the door for us. That choice falls to us. And you, our listener, you are deeply implicated in this choice. We all are.
How we react, what we demand, what we build.
Exactly. So when you ask, can AI solve unemployment? You are, perhaps without realizing it, also asking a much deeper, much more fundamental question. What kind of society do we actually wish to build now that the very foundations of labor as we've known it are crumbling beneath us? What are our core values when unprecedented abundance is technically possible, but its just distribution is far from guaranteed?
The future waits for our answer.
The future waits, but it does not wait forever. The choice ultimately is ours to make.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in the next video.